In the backstage of the K-pop industry, there are those who scream, those who dance, those who produce, and then there are those who sing, quietly, neatly, no drums, but full accord. Today, we enter the third part of our 5-part series, RACHA Files. After the brain's 3 RACHA, after the body's dance RACHA, we're focusing on what gives everything a soul. Welcome to the world of vocal RACHA, Seungmin. In Woojin, 3 names, 3 voices, 3 melodic lines often drowned by the bass. 3 paths as different as they are complementary. They didn't make waves, they made harmonies. They didn't always get the spotlight. But theirs are the voices we hum in the shower. We'll talk vocal technique, but also contract-induced silence, YouTube covers and digital vanishing, trot, sarcasm, and blurry farewells. And above all, how a RACHA, once seen as secondary, became essential to the sonic and emotional identity of Stray Kids. It's an episode about voices we hear without really listening, and what happens when one of them goes quiet. RACHA Files, Episode 3. 5 segments, 1 disappearance, 2 survivors, and notes that still resonate even when everything else falls apart.
Cappuccino, egg, sharp minds, brewed hot, sure bra. No sugar, no filter. Sip, think, repeat.
Rap is sexy, noise goes viral, dance is photogenic, and in the middle, there is the voice. Not the one that slaps, the one that holds, the one you can't see in a fan cam, but that makes all the difference between a performance that resonates and one that falls flat. In Stray Kids, people talk a lot about 3 RACHA, they talk about dance RACHA, they talk about the concept. Rarely do they talk about the ones who sing. And yet, vocal RACHA has always been there. Seungmin, IN, Woojin, the 3 pillars of emotion in a group that bets everything on energy. And without them, let's be clear, 3 RACHA's productions would just be noise. Well produced, sure, but noise nonetheless. Stray Kids is a group that broke through with its radical proposition, no traditional structure, no balance between rap and vocals, no SM or big hit model. A sonically brutal editorial line, driven by homegrown production that's sharp, sharp, sharp. And in this context, having solid vocalists isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. Vocal RACHA is the glue between a banger and an anthem. It's what elevates a track from cool to moving. And in a group where everything is fast, punchy, sometimes saturated, the sung voice is the only space for breathing, for texture, for contrast. From the beginning, each vocal RACHA member had a defined role. Woojin was the main vocal. He delivered the high notes, the intense choruses, the emotional climaxes. He was the go-to when a line had to emotionally carry a track. Woojin had this warm, full, slightly grainy voice, perfect for R&B tracks, tense ballads, and safe choruses. He came from SM, and that's no coincidence. His vocal placement, control, and vibrato were rare for a rookie. On early tracks like My Pace or I Am You, he created the vocal relief. Seungmin was officially the secondary vocal, but in practice, he quickly became the one who structured everything. His voice is clear, bright, precise. He has a sense of diction that makes every word audible, even in dense mixes. They called him the group's dandy, but vocally, he was the discreet technician, able to hold a line, to rise cleanly, to stabilize 3-part harmonies. Not Woojin's raw emotion, his was emotional control, and it worked. Finally, IN, the maknae of the team, arrived as support. At 16, his voice was still developing. Nasal, slightly sharp, not yet mature, but it was distinct. And more importantly, he learned fast. Very fast. A Stray Kids construction was built on a vocal core of 3 complementary voices. In My Pace, for example, Seungmin carries the central chorus melody, Woojin lifts it with powerful climbs, and IN anchors the harmonies. Without them, that track would be a string of aggressive riffs and stadium chants. With them, it becomes a song. In I Am You, the sensitivity is front and center. Woojin opens with an almost fragile line, followed by Seungmin, who sharpens the intent. IN, on the bridge, adds a touch of vulnerability that hits home. It's a perfect demonstration of the vocal trio's importance in the musical architecture of Stray Kids. But the real showcase comes with Mixtape Hash 4, a bonus track hidden in an album, yet one of the most essential to understand the group's vocal identity. Here, the 3 vocalists are front and center over a mid-tempo, almost gospel bass. No performance, just vocal hold. Woojin is immense. He places his voice at the center, stable, full. Seungmin builds around it, and IN connects the dots. It's subtle, it's elegant, and it's rare, because in the rest of the discography of that era, vocals often serve the concept. Here, they are the center. They don't illustrate, they embody. Technically, each member evolved. Woojin kept his warm voice but gained power in the high register. He was comfortable with belting, clean attacks, and ad-libs. He became the safe voice. Seungmin refined his projection. His tone stayed bright but gained depth. He adapted his style to different keys without ever forcing. IN progressed audibly. His voice thickened. He corrected the nasality. he gained accuracy. No longer a maknae in training, he became a credible vocalist. When he later covered Radiohead's Creep solo, it was almost a declaration of war against the haters. The nasal kid had become a rock frontman. Beyond individual performances, it's the harmonization work that shows real progress. The vocal trio learned to function as one, to breathe together, to build multi-voice textures. You can see it in Lives Like Voices, in some unplugged versions, or in Waiting for Us, the vocal unit track from the Ordinary mini album. On that track, Seungmin and IN lead the melodic line, with Lee No and Bang Chan in support. Woojin was no longer there, but the remaining duo had absorbed, digested, surpassed. The vocal legacy lived on. Understand that in a group like Stray Kids, where focus is always elsewhere rap, production, performance holding a vocal line is an act of resistance. It's a reminder that music isn't just impact, it's intention too. And vocal RACHA from the beginning was the vehicle of that intention. Their role wasn't to steal the spotlight. It was to allow the spotlight to stand. And yet, despite being the vocal backbone, vocal RACHA was never marketed as such. Not on covers, not in promotional lineups. Because in the industry, the ones who sing aren't always the ones you highlight. They're given choruses, not mics. They're heard, not listened to. And in Stray Kids' case, it's even more true. Their sonic identity is so tightly tied to noise, to rap, to controlled chaos, that we almost forgot to analyze what kept the machine from disintegrating measure by measure. When in truth, it all held together thanks to the voice. Not the loudest, not the deepest, not the most praised, just the one that held. And in a group constantly running against the clock, against the market, against itself, those voices may have been the only ones still keeping tempo.
Tunnel whispers got you sent on me, on me, on me. Mark the times you crossed without a key. Every signal flickers you to me, to me, to me. I don't chase, I just believe. Static hums when you're near. Do you feel it in your mirror? There's no name, just the sound of a presence underground. Yeah, this line never sleeps. Watch you pass, never speak. But I'm there in the glass, on repeat, repeat. And it's safe when I don't breathe. When you ride and I just speak. Rough track, no retreat. Yeah, this line never sleeps. I sit still, but I'm aligned, so close. Time my pulse to every wheel you wind, your ghost. You don't see, but I design all the echoes that you find. Warning bells, not for danger, just a beat I made for strangers. You won't name me, but you'll know when the silence starts to glow. Yeah, this line never sleeps. I rewind every heat that you leave in the dark, bittersweet. And it's safe when I'm unseen. When I vanish in your stream. Fast ride, cold steam. Yeah, this line never sleeps. Your ticket said no turning, but I was never on board. Still I painted the ceiling of every car you ignored. Yeah, this line never sleeps. I'm the space you don't keep. Every blink I slip deep. Not a ghost, not a dream. Just the hum beneath your theme.
are three, but they never functioned as a trio. No three RACHA-like synergy, no dance RACHA gimmick. Vocal RACHA is an asymmetrical constellation. 3 poles, 3 paths, 3 solitudes, and behind their vocal complementarity lies a personality dynamic far more fragile than it seems. IN is chaos from below. The youngest, the one you want to protect, but who ends up throwing everyone off balance. Officially, he's the Machna. In practice, he's the gremlin little brother no one can fully rein in. He laughs offbeat, speaks out loud in the silence, throws absurd jokes during debriefings. But it's not noise for the sake of noise, it's strategy. IN disrupts rhythm, off-centers dynamics, forces others to react to him. And it works. On stage, he'll sneak in a smirk mid-dramatic concept. On shows, he answers sideways, often with disarming confidence. He doesn't want to be taken seriously, so he forces everyone to play along, even the older ones. What makes him so hard to pin down is that constant blend of self-deprecation and fierce work ethic. We remember him as the kid singing trot on the survival show, the kid who struggled to hold his lines in 2018, but what gets forgotten is how much he absorbed, learned, compensated. Barely a year of training, no classical background. Yet 5 years later, he's on stage alone with a guitar, covering Radiohead in front of tens of thousands. That's not improvisation, that's payback. In contrast, there's Seungmin, almost his opposite, calm, methodical, precise. He never gets lost in a throwaway joke. He doesn't interrupt. He waits, then lands the blow with a deadpan punchline, a sarcastic glare, and inconvenient truth. He's a sniper. Not loud, not flashy, just sharp. On the surface, he embodies stability. He's the one you picture rolling his eyes when things go off the rails. The one handling morning calls on tour. The one who takes himself seriously until he undercuts it with a self-roast. His humor is so dry it needs decoding in post-prod. Vocally, it's the same. He doesn't aim to impress. He wants every note to land right, every breath intentional. In a world where many singers go for the showy high note, he goes for the note that serves. It frustrates some fans who want him to let loose, but this restraint is why he's respected in Korea. He's who you call when you need to cover IU on Kingdom alongside Eunkwang, not to steal the spotlight, to hold the structure. Between them was Woojin, the ghost, the anchor of the past, the one whose name isn't spoken, but whose absence screams through the early choruses. Before he left, he was everything the group wasn't: stable, warm, grounding. Not dazzling, but dependable. A hyung, not the leader, but an anchor. He carried the toughest lines. Spoke softly to the younger ones backstage. Smiled during tense rehearsals. And then one day, there was no more Woojin. What makes vocal RACHA unique is that their energies never quite align. There's no smooth synergy. Just coexistence, often in silence. IN brings chaos. Seungmin structures. Woojin softens. It doesn't form a triangle. It's a delicate balance. That's probably why their dynamic was more implied than shown. No vocal room. No trio projects. Just voices intersecting. Rarely together, always complementary. Here's where it gets interesting, how their vocal presence reflects the group's internal balance. IN was often sidelined early on, too young, too raw, too unpredictable. But he built his presence on stage his own way. Through humor, through irony, through surprise. Seungmin, meanwhile, always seemed older than his age. Like he already understood that in a group like Stray Kids, endurance matters more than impact. He took his time, earned ground, imposed his precision without demanding attention. And Woojin always seemed slightly out of sync with the group's frantic rhythm. Not offbeat, just more grounded. Less caught in the constant tension. Maybe that foreshadowed his exit. People often define Stray Kids by the 3 RACHA core, a fierce dance line, and the international duo Felix and Chan tailored for the cameras. But vocal RACHA was never scripted. And maybe that's why it stayed so human. 3 paths, 3 tempos, 3 emotional textures. No polished unity. Just voices holding up a group faster than its own shadow. In the downtime, when everyone else chases the concept, it's often one of them who brings things back to earth. IN with his playful detachment, Seungmin with his ironic seriousness, Woojin with his calm. It's not the spotlight that ties them together. It's how they consistently dodge it. On October 28th, 2019, JYP Entertainment released a statement. No teaser, no live announcement, no handwritten letter. Just a flat press release, void of emotion. Kim Woojin is leaving Stray Kids. Contract terminated. The official reason: personal circumstances. 5 words to erase the group's main vocalist. 5 words to end a 2-year bond between 9 members. 5 words that triggered an earthquake no one saw coming. At that moment, Stray Kids was preparing for a comeback. The EP Clay, Levanter, had already been announced and teased, nearly ready. Then everything stopped. The album was delayed by 2 weeks. JYP confirmed the new date. Due to Woojin's departure, the album will be released on December 9th. The message was cold, factual, no details. No explanation of the so-called circumstances. Just a scheduling update, business as usual. But nothing about this was usual. Because until the day before, Woojin was there, on stage, in rehearsals, on V Live, and then suddenly he wasn't. Not online, not backstage, not in the songs. A clean break. no explanation, no narrative. And in a group so young, where direct communication with fans is key, the silence hit like a shockwave. Bang Chan, as leader, was the only one to express something more personal. He posted a message that night. He wrote that his heart was heavy. He apologized for the chaos, for the lack of answers, and he ended with a line that stayed with fans: "I'm sorry I couldn't protect number 9. That was it. No name. No specifics. Just this regret, this sense of helplessness, a line that felt like both a confession and a fracture. What followed was methodical. Every song on the new album was re-recorded. Woojin's parts were redistributed mostly to Seungmin, IN, and sometimes Chan. Some lines were removed altogether. Others were altered to better suit the new voices. It was clean, efficient, almost surgical. And that's what stung, not the departure, the speed of the erasure. Fans noticed instantly. Old live videos featuring Woojin began disappearing from YouTube. Live replays were edited. In backstage clips, his face was blurred. On social media, no photos, no mentions. In SKZ Talker, Two Kids Room, even on Spotify credits, his name vanished. It wasn't a public statement. It was a cleanup operation. But it was real. And the absolute silence left room for the inevitable speculation. Forums lit up. Some talked about internal conflict, others about a scandal JYP wanted to bury. Some fans pointed out how distant Woojin seemed in recent videos. Others shared screenshots where he looked away during V Lives. Nothing concrete, just theories fed by the vacuum, because JYP said nothing more. And neither did the members. What stood out was the lack of any closure. No farewell video, no letter. Not even a personal message from Woojin. For months, he remained silent. And in a fandom built on connectivity, that silence was unbearable. Fans started archiving videos, sharing fan cams, using the hashtag #ThankYouWoojin to construct a goodbye the agency wouldn't give. Within Stray Kids, the balance shifted. Chan stepped up. Seungmin took on more. IN gained lines. But for months, the group moved with an absence. You could see it in showcases in live recordings. Seungmin took the high note in Elevator, but it wasn't the same. The final ad-lib in My Row was rearranged. On stage, some movements hung empty places Woojin used to fill. The fandom fractured. Some chose quiet mourning. Others cried injustice. Some began erasing him themselves in fan art, in tweets, in edits. Woojin became a taboo. Not to be mentioned, not to be brought up. The agency never clarified. The members never responded. Even during Q&As where fans insisted, the rule held no comment. And the silence persisted. Even when, in September 2020, Woojin resurfaced not with a comeback, but a controversy. An anonymous tweet, a blurry photo, unverified accusations. The rumors reignited. We'll get to that. But by then, one thing was already clear. The way his departure was handled solved nothing. It simply shifted the tension from internal to public. In an industry that scripts everything, saying nothing is still a choice. It carries weight. It creates shadows. It invites speculation. And in Woojin's case, that void froze a version of him no one, fans, members, not even Woojin himself, could fully undo. He became an active absence, a silent variable, a starting point for doubt, projection, longing. For vocal RACHA, it wasn't just a departure. It was an amputation, the loss of an anchor, a technical pillar, and on a human level, a bond. IN and Seungmin rarely speak about the void, but everything about their vocal evolution, their shift in roles, their intensity after 2019 shows how much had to be recalibrated, reclaimed, relearned, rediscovered. Woojin wasn't replaced. He was reassigned, dissolved, erased. And yet, in every live where Seungmin hits the high notes, in every performance where IN holds a line, there's still that trace. That memory of a voice no one names anymore, but that everyone instinctively recognizes. Because that's how you recognize a void, by how the others try to fill it.
She walked in, caught his eye like fire. Two hearts racing, tangled in desire. They moved like echoes in the night, but love's no map, no wrong or right.
Passion burned but doubt crept in, two wild souls lost in the wind. They held on tight, but the weight was clear. Some love stories fade, even when sincere.
Love's a cruel game, no guarantees. Sometimes you gotta let go, set 'em free. Their dreams were oceans too wide.
passion burned but doubt crept in. Two wild souls lost in the wind. She saw the future, a separate lane. Knew that staying would bring more pain.
Love's a cruel game, no guarantees. Sometimes you gotta let go, set 'em free. Their dreams were mountains too steep to climb. She said goodbye, gave him back his time. She held his hand, whispered low, I'll always love you, but I have to go. Their roads split now, no turning back, but love still lingers in the fading black. She walked away, her heart torn, knowing some love is meant to be mourned. A story traced in a midnight sky, a bittersweet goodbye, love's last reply.
After 2019, all eyes were on 3 RACHA. Would they hold the line? Could the songwriting, the production, the vision stay intact? What most people overlooked was the vocal crack in the system. Stray Kids had lost their main vocalist, and that's possibly the hardest role to fill. You can write better lines for a rapper. You can hide a weaker dancer in choreography. But a voice, especially a lead vocal, is not something you can fake. Not when it carries the chorus. And yet, that's exactly what Seungmin and IN had to face. One had to rise. The other had to catch up. Both had to adapt, absorb the blow, with no time to grow at their own pace. Not because anyone demanded it, but because the space was empty. And the music doesn't stop. Seungmin was the one who picked up the torch head-on. He didn't have Woojin's warm timbre or the same range. His voice was clear, steady, structured, so he built around that. He didn't dive into ad-libs or gritty rock screams. He built stability. And it showed quickly. In late 2019 live stages, he sang the choruses cleanly. He didn't force them, he delivered them with accuracy. And over time, his range expanded. His delivery became more expressive. He went higher without strain. He gained control. Recognition, however, took longer. It wasn't until Kingdom, Legendary War, that non-fans began to notice. In the vocal unit episode, he shared the stage with Jongho AT, EEZ, and Eunkwang BTOB, 2 powerhouses. They performed IU's Love Poem, and Seungmin didn't overpower the song. He blended into it. No flashy runs, no strained notes, just a clean, sincere, stable line. He didn't steal the spotlight, but he made the performance whole. Even Eunkwang praised him. Korean forums lit up, Stray Kids' vocalist is solid. Not flashy, solid. At the same time, Seungmin began posting regular covers on YouTube, mainly DA6 songs, his favorite band. You Were Beautiful, Zombie, I Loved You, technically demanding songs, full of nuance, far from SKZ's usual style, and he sang them straight, full voice, sometimes standing, sometimes sitting, always precise. These covers racked up millions of views. They became calling cards. Proof. He wasn't the secondary vocalist anymore. He was the vocal safety net, the one who could sing anything with no distractions. Meanwhile, IN took a different path, less linear, riskier. He started farther back. In 2018, his voice was often criticized as unstable. Nasal, weak in projection. The critiques were everywhere: live performances, fan cams, forums. It wasn't mean-spirited. It was cold, clinical. He didn't sound like a main vocalist. Not yet, but instead of shrinking, he worked. He disappeared into rehearsals, absorbed everything, changed his posture, strengthened his voice, fixed his breathing. And by 2020, it showed. In choruses, he held longer lines. His pitch stabilized. His control improved. On songs like X or Slump, he became unmistakably present, and as his confidence grew, he added nuance. Micro-inflections, playfulness. He didn't try to imitate Woojin. He evolved into IN 2.0, but it was on stage that he stunned everyone. During the 2022 to 2023 World Tour, he debuted a surprise solo, a cover of Radiohead's Creep, alone, with a guitar, no gimmicks, no backing track, just him. A bare voice, flawless English, and a raw intensity no one expected. The fan cams went viral. Fans rediscovered a matinee they thought was only for harmonies. Rolling Stone UK, reviewing the London show, highlighted how much his voice had matured, incorporating subtle elements of rock. And it was true. He wasn't forcing anything. He wasn't acting. He was just there, present, in his voice. And at that age, that's rare. IN is the quiet comeback, the kind that doesn't announce itself, that doesn't make a scene but slowly asserts itself through time. Precision, work. Together, he and Seungmin achieved something unlikely, restoring vocal balance to a group that lost its core, not by replicating, but by redistributing, rewriting the SKZ sound to match their tones. It wasn't a power grab, it was a rebuild. Stray Kids never claimed vocal supremacy. It's not part of their brand, and yet, in recent years, their live performances have become steadier, choruses more controlled, high notes cleaner. Encore stages, those raw moments without playback, have become playgrounds for Seungmin and IN. No effects, no lip sync. No visible stress. They never asked to be noticed. But by staying consistent, they earned it. Not as K-pop's vocal kings, but as what they truly are, reliable, expressive, and essential singers. The invisible pillars until suddenly, everyone saw them. The paradox of Stray Kids is this. They're a global phenomenon powered by a domestic fan base that took its sweet time catching on. While estates around the world screamed the lyrics to top line in packed stadiums, South Korea hesitated. This perception gap isn't new, but it's especially striking when you look at vocal RACHA. Because what Korean audiences hear isn't always what the rest of the world listens to, or more precisely, not through the same lens. Take Seungmin. In the English-speaking ecosystem, he's often dubbed the underrated king. YouTube is flooded with titles like Seungmin being Stray Kids' secret weapon, complete with caps lock and oversaturated thumbnails. He's praised for vocal stability, crisp English, perfect diction. In American fan bases, he's seen as a spokesperson, a steady hand. Above all, a safe vocalist in a sonically chaotic group. In Korea, it's different. For a long time, he was viewed as flat, too clean, not enough identity. He got credit for pitch, not charisma. Some forums even described his tone as too generic to stand out. It took Kingdom and some dramatic stages to start shifting that image. And still, the Woojin replacement label clings to him in Korean comment sections. As if vocal legitimacy is something he's still earning. Now, IN his perception gap is even sharper. Internationally, his unusual tone took heat early on. Nasal quality, shaky live vocals, criticism rained down in 2019 to 2020. Fan cams with comments like, "Why does he sound like that?" circulated for months, but since 2022, the narrative flipped. Non-Korean fans began celebrating his evolution. His creep cover sparked a huge resurgence in interest. Reddit, TikTok, and Twitter Oops X filled up with clips of English-speaking fans discovering his voice as a raw gem. Suddenly, he was vulnerable, striking, unique. In a hyper-polished industry, his tone became emotionally gripping. In Korea, the reaction is more reserved. Local fans acknowledge the effort, but don't always see it as a rise in rank. His image is still tied to being the matinee, the cute one, rather than the accomplished singer. And to be fair, JYP's media strategy hasn't helped shake that. He's spotlighted for variety show reactions, awkward jokes, adorable moments. So his vocal credibility often gets buried under the packaging. And then there's Woojin. Another sharp contrast. Before leaving, he had a strong reputation in Korea, former SM trainee, full voice, polished vibrato, dependable stage presence. For many,
He was Stray Kids' vocal anchor.
globally, his impact was subtler. Less celebrated than Chan, less viral than Han, less visually magnetic than Yoonjin. Post-2019, perceptions froze or fractured. In Korea, he faded. Internationally, he was rewritten, either the one who left or a ghost invoked in whispers, with hazy nostalgia. All of this raises a bigger question: what do we really value in a voice? Pitch? Emotion? The story it tells. Because vocal RACHA isn't just a vocal line, it's a balancing act. 3 tones, 3 arcs, 3 perspectives. And that system gets filtered, refracted, reshaped by the listeners engaging with it. There's a delicious irony here. In a group known for curated chaos, it's the quietest voices that stir the most debate. Not because they lack impact, but because they ask to be heard, really heard. And maybe that's what makes vocal RACHA so essential. They force you to listen, not just react.
7 a.m. Sky still here, rain still due. The apocalypse didn't RSVP, but it left a voicemail. I spread butter like it's a coping mechanism. I count the birds, all 3. One looks like he knows things. I'm too informed to be surprised, too tired to be outraged, too caffeinated to sleep, too awake to dream. I scroll past fires like they're memes. Gaza, forest billionaire stars in space. I react with a toast emoji. I call that balance. This is my end of days routine. Filter coffee, filtered news. The planet's burdened with bad Wi-Fi, and I'm just refilling my spoon. No breakdowns before breakfast. No hope without sarcasm. Apocalypse with a side of toast and emotional detachment for dessert. My therapist said I need grounding, so I touch grass. It's dead, my fault probably. I dreamt once that everything was fine. I woke up, my screen told me otherwise. Thanks, screen. I'm not numb, I'm just calibrated. I adjusted the volume on reality, and now it's background music to my mediocre lunch. This is my end of days routine. Hope postponed, truth delayed. Laugh tracks over chaos, guilt microwaved. No hero arc, no grand escape. Just me, a fork in yesterday's shame. Apocalypse with a side of toast, and still I stay.
Maybe that's the real signature of vocal racha, not voices that demand attention, but voices that endure, voices that learn, that bend, stretch, evolve in silence while the others scream. It's not flashy, it's not theatrical, but it's the reason the tower of sound never collapsed. So next time you play a Stray Kids track, try something simple, listen closely. Not for the drop, not for the scream, just for the vocal line running through it all. The one you don't always notice, but that holds everything together. Because now you've met 3 racha in the eye of the storm, then dance racha in the body in motion. And now vocal racha in the ribcage. It's time to take on the full creature. Next episode, Stray Kids Part 1. No more subunits, no more excuses. We're opening the gates. The factory, the myth, the fractures, the machine. 8 boys, 1 empire, and a labyrinth of contradictions. Lace up. It's going to be brutal. And until then, if this episode moved you, shook something loose, or simply gave you a clearer lens, share it, rate it, scream it in the street if you're feeling dramatic, and you are. This is the perfect moment to support the project. All my episodes are on Patreon with exclusive bonus content. You'll also find my books, music, videos, everything that keeps this universe alive. If you want cappuccino and croissant to survive the algorithm, that's where it happens. I'm Harmonie De Miéville. You've just listened to another episode of the RACHA FILES series, and somewhere between harmonics, ghosts, and swallowed choruses, there's still so much left to say. All right, take care.
Cappuccino, white crock, mines, brewed hot, served raw. No sugar, no filter. Sip, think, repeat, repeat, repeat.